Hello YouTubers, today we'll be installing two USB charger outlets and a breakaway switch on our 30-foot Jayco. Today's project is I'm going to be installing a 12 amp USB connectors in the bedroom, one on each side of the bed. All we have right now is the electrical outlets. Now what I've done is I've ordered through Amazon one each, and this is basically the way they come. It's all pre-packaged, and what's included is you have your USB connector, the faceplate, the nut. You also have the wiring, both positive and negative. The positive, by the way, does have a small fuse that's already included into it. You've got your push connectors. Also, you've got a couple extra connectors here that you can connect to your power supply, and a couple of screws. So if you hear a little background noise right now, what that is I'm inside the camper. It's kind of cool, so the furnace is on, so, but please excuse that. Now, one of the first things I did, as I get some light here, is I pulled everything out of my cabinets that's over the bed and raised up the floor. The floor of the cabinet. It's not too much of a problem. Just kind of get down there with a screwdriver and lift up, and she pops right up. Doesn't cause any damage that you can see. The next thing I did is I established my polarities and determined that the black is the positive and the white is the negative. Then after that, I emptied out the closet here. See if we can get enough light. Doesn't look like it's going to be very much, but anyway, I emptied out my closet and I've been determining where I'm going to be putting my plug. It looks like what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to mount it right down here on this corner. And to determine where I'm going to put this, where I'm going to drill through, is I go on the inside. Hope you can see that. And I'll connect it right to here. Now, after determining where I was going to put my connector, I drilled a small pilot hole for one of the screws, and then mounted my plate temporarily on the other side with just one screw to make sure everything's all lined up. Now that's going to give me enough space, whereas the center hole is going, when I drill that out, it's going to clear the little brace piece that's on the bottom of the cabinet, and it'll give me total access with the wiring. Now with my paddle blade, I went ahead and I established the center of my hole and went ahead and drilled through it very carefully without splintering it up too much. And I went through the front, that way the exterior panel won't be too damaged. Now, before I go any farther, I just want to point out that your connecting points are clearly marked positive and negative. So once I get it in behind the cabinet, I'll know where to plug in my positive and my negative. Just as a footnote, you might want to make sure that that notch on the bottom of this plate is at the very top, right here. So that gives you room for your cover over your USB connector, or your 12-volt connector, whatever you want to call it. Easy fix in case you don't, just like I did. I just simply unscrewed it, spun it around, and then tightened them back out, down again, and now it's perfectly fine. Now here you can see my wires are fully installed to put the nut on the back of my fixture there. And temporarily I've just got it kind of set aside. I'll probably end up bending these or just just arranging them so they're kind of out of the way. I'll do something with that just to make sure nothing happens to them when I put clothes in there. But they should stay out of the way either, no matter if I hang stuff or fold stuff and put it back there. Now it's kind of hard to see, but the next thing I did is I drilled, or partially drilled, with a smaller paddled bit. Basically, say, I'll have to look that up here for you. Oh, here we go. That's a 1/2-inch drive paddle bit. The other one, by the way, where I did in a big hole, that was 1 1/8. And that was just enough room for me to get my fixture through there, or the plug through there. By using the 1/2 inch, that gives me enough room not only for the wires, but I've also got a little wire management cover that I'm going to run through there just to keep it from chafing. Hopefully you can see where it's starting to come through. See that little small white dot? That should be pretty good. And what I'll do is I'll drill the rest of the way from this side over. That way it keeps the chipping down. Okay, now you can see it's opened up. And now I can run my wires through it. Now I made a little change in my connections. What I originally tried to do is I've got these little connectors. The one here attaches onto your cable, or onto your power line or ground line, and you just snap it over, and then on your other end you just simply put on one of these blade connectors. So that's what I did here. As you can see, and this is on my negative, is that I put the connector right over the top of my ground, and then I put on my black negative, coming from the switch, I put on a blade connector, which is, they're color coded, so yellow on the yellow. And that seemed to work pretty good. However, I was having problems with the power, or with the positive side. So what I did, and I've also added on some added length onto these so it doesn't stretch it out. But here you can see I've got my positive line, and I've got these little connectors. And I saw these on RVing with Tito, and I got a few of them. They come in a package where you've got some doubles, triples, and quads. And the way these work, see if I can do it with one hand, but you simply pop up the little connector there, and then you can put your cable or your line directly into those holes. Once they're in there, you snap them down and they're secure, so they will not pull apart. So that's what I ended up doing right here on the positive side, and it has worked out fantastic. And not only that, I made my connection down here. Sorry about the light. I'll have to clean that up. And I have got power to my 12 volt. Now, as you can see, the floor's all back in. You can't see any evidence of what was done. On the inside here, that's where I've got my cable coming out. And then I'll be trimming that, or cleaning that up a little bit. But that's where I put my little wire management, so it doesn't cause any problems. And then I'll just get some wire ties and some wire management, and I'll secure the rest of that. Today I'm going to be installing a breakaway switch on my camper since the other one has gone bad. Basically what's happened is that the pin has broken off, and I can show that to you a little bit later. but the pin has broken off on the inside, keeping it open, so it's actually in an unsafe position. So if I should become unhitched, the camper will just keep on rolling instead of the brakes engaging. So I ordered this particular breakaway switch right off of Amazon. I think it was only about $15–20, don't recall right offhand. The tools I'm going to be using will be my voltage meter, ohm meter. I've got 3 butt splice waterproof junctions or joints I'm going to be connecting my wires with. I took a piece of shrink or heat shrink, and I've cut it in half. That I'll be putting over it as well as an added measure. And instead of using my heat gun, I'm just going to use my lighter. Also have a pair of nips. I've got some wire snippers and stripping tool, as well as it's also a crimper, and I'll be using that to crimp with. And I've got my regular wire strippers. I've got a roll of black electrical tape that I'll probably use as well. You know, like I said, I'm a bit anal retentive. Common screwdriver, Phillips screwdriver, and I may even be using my cordless screwdriver if I feel the need. I also failed to mention I've got some wire ties and some wire management. May or may not use them, but I just wanted to indicate that as well. Now, to better get at the switch, I removed my one of my 30-gallon or 30-pound tanks and my cover off my tongue, and that's going to give me better access to the switch. I can actually see it a little bit better. So might not be able to see it very well. Let's see if I can get a look at it here. It's going to be right here. So now here's a look at the old one. The pin, which you can see that's broken right off, and the rest of it's sitting on the inside. Looks like I misspoke, and I'm going to be using a open end wrench to remove that. I don't know, I may replace it with a regular screw, or I'll just use that again if I can. Well, YouTubers, if nothing else, this is realistic, so I make mistakes just like everybody else. So this is going to take a 3/8 socket, which I'll go ahead and I'll pull off my my hitch or my switch with it. So obviously this thing is totally shot, so fortunately I didn't have anything happen where my brakes locked up or the trailer didn't break away. Now I've checked my polarity, and on the top that's going to be my positive, and on the bottom that's my negative. Definitely had 12 amps going through there. Now, after stripping my wires on each end, I slipped on the shrink, and I put on my butt connector, and I went ahead and I crimped that as well. And I did that on both the positive and the negative. Now, from what I understand, it doesn't matter if the positive or negative, what side you do positive or what side you do negative. However, just to be on the side of caution, I looked at the schematic and it showed the left wire going to the positive and the right wire going to the negative. So hence, that's the way I'm going to do it. Now, I tied a knot in my positive line that I'm going to be connected to my positive terminal, or positive feed I should say, and then I coiled everything back up. Rather than just cut the wires short, I decided I was just going to coil them up, wrap it with a wire tie, and that way if I need be, I can always replace the other lines. But in the meantime, this will kind of keep everything nice and I've gone ahead and I've stripped off the wire, the wire ends to the switch or breakaway switch. Put them in the butt connector, and now I'm going to heat that up with the lighter. Now they're all crimped together, and I used the lighter to shrink the butt connectors. I'm actually taking it one step farther, and I've got my heat shrink, and I'm going to go ahead and heat those up so then I get double protection. Okay, now it's all heated up. The heat shrink has all been heated up with the lighter, and I have a nice good connection that's totally waterproof on for my wire connectors that goes to my breakaway switch. Okay, now I went ahead and I reinstalled my 3/8 self-drilling bolt or screw, and then I kind of tidied things up here, wrapped a little wire tie around that so all my excess cord is neatly tucked away and not exposed to the elements. Now I've restrung the cable for my cutoff switch for the pole pin, and you run that through the chain. This is actually supposed to be connected to your not your hitch itself, but to where the ring clamps onto, or your hook clamps onto your frame. That way, if the hitch pulls out, it won't, it'll still pull your switch or pull your cable, and then your brakes will engage. Okay, so after making all my connections and tidying things up, my breakaway switch has now been installed and I can travel safely. Just as an added measure, I have had problems with this cable catching on to my jack stand. So what I just did is I took a couple of wire ties and wrapped them around the frame loosely, and then strung my breakaway switch cable through that so it doesn't hang. That'll keep it a little bit neater for me, for my travels, and then I won't catch it with my jack stand. And I think that's basically what's happened in the past, because there's been a lot of stress on that case, and I think that's what broke that original switch. Here's a look at the old switch. I pulled it apart. You can see it's pretty bad shape, and then my pin has been snapped and mangled. So I really have no idea why this thing didn't even short out and cause my brakes to lock up. So, but now everything's all been replaced, and I've got a good system again. Now that everything is all buttoned up and clean and all installed, in closing I can say it was a relatively very easy job. The switch, breakaway switch, is well out of the way. Everything's nice and tidy, and I'm all ready for my next trip, which is going to be up to Traverse City, Michigan on October 1st. The one thing I might add is, if this ever happens to you where that switch goes bad, don't take this as gospel, but my plan was, if the switch was going to go bad on me while I was en route, I just simply cut the wires that goes to the switch and just make sure I got a good connection. That way at least the switch will stay open. I hope you enjoyed this video on the USB chargers and the breakaway switch. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And most of all, thanks for watching.